What's up everyone, Adrian here from Just Toys, and today I'm super excited to reveal my fully customized 1/12 scale Modoking Tumbler Batmobile inspired by the Dark Knight trilogy. And when I first saw this thing go up for pre-order, I jumped on it. I already own the Soap Studios version, which is solid, but the reliance on an outdated phone app for remote control, that was bit of a buzzkill. So I saw this Modoking version as a blank canvas, a chance to build my own definitive Batmobile, and let me tell you, customizing this beast was no walk in the Batcave. If you're thinking of customizing your own tumbler, here's my number one tip: customize as you build. Seriously, if you want to paint, do it before assembly. Running lights, plan your wiring layout as you go, and make sure you have extra wire because you'll be threading them through tight, awkward spots. It's a challenging project, but it's incredibly rewarding. So for the exterior, I gave the whole body a subtle airbrush weathering job, just enough to make it look like it's seen some action. The tires got dirtied up too. I painted the copper and silver struts to pop more vibrantly compared to the flat factory finish that they gave. And then I added some scratches, some dings, and even some soot on the exhaust to make it look like it's really fired up for battle. You know what I mean? I threw some sandpaper on the footstep for texture, even though Batman never uses it. He usually goes in from the front, so I don't even know why those are there. I mean, probably for the actual stunt crew to get in through the top. And then I accidentally broke the spoiler during assembly, but you know, lemonades, right? I saw it as an opportunity, so I ended up modeling a more screen accurate version, and then I 3D printed it. And I completed it with the struts that linked to the afterburner exhaust, so it came out a little bit more accurate. I had the Batmobile book that Warner Brothers released a few years ago, and I also had, of course, a Soap Studio to sort of kind of reference that on. I also 3D printed some of the hydraulic struts on the back and added real springs for the rear suspension, even though it's not really going to work because of how it actually connects to the body. So, but still, it looks cool. I then took some wire and painted it silver and had that running from the actual suspension pistons to the hydraulic pistons that I made on the sides. It's sort of like I 3D printed them so they would have pegs, and I drilled the holes, and then I basically plugged them into the pegs and put a little bit of glue to keep them there. And then I got the chance to actually customize some of the back spoiler where the gauges are, so I painted the gauges silver and white, and also the gold valves, and added some little dials for effect, and added some clear resin and shined a UV light to make a lens. And yeah, I got a pretty good accurate version of the rear assembly of the tumbler there. One weird thing I noticed is that the rims didn't move with the tires. It sort of had this Batman Forever thing going on where the rim stayed stationary and the tire rotated around it. I didn't really like that. So I cut and modified the rims so that they rotate with the tires, and they give you a way more realistic feel. Lighting this thing was a nightmare, but it was worth it. I replaced most of the stock lights with chip lights from evandesigns.com because the originals just drained super duper fast. Like, the batteries would just drain, and then when you got to replace the batteries, you sort of have to take them apart, and you don't want to be doing that with this plastic, trust me. So the only stock lights that I kept were the ones next to the windshield, and they still turn on with a magnet, which is a cool gimmick, and I really wanted to keep that. But I did a little bit of a inside job on them. Instead of having them go to batteries, I rewired them and soldered them to the same power source. These lights are brighter and they give a more realistic feel. I like the thing to look bright and intimidating. And the power source is a rechargeable 123 battery that I picked up from Amazon. They plug in by USB to recharge, so it makes it a whole lot easier when, you know, if the battery runs out, I just got to replace one battery instead of having to go in and try to pull these pieces out. Like, it really wasn't fun. On to the interior. First thing I had to do was I had to paint, because stock, it pretty much came all black. So I painted the steering wheel, the center console, throttle, and the dash, and I did some dry brushing to bring out some of the molded details and give it a little bit of a weathered effect. I then added foam ribbed cushions on either side, and I did those with gray foam and a heat knife. Now when I looked at the dash, I saw that the dash that Modoking provided wasn't really accurate. So by looking at the Hatchet Works and looking at the Hot Toys, I went ahead and opened up my 3D modeling program, and I modeled and printed new dashboard pieces on the sides. And I did that so that I could have better screen accuracy. I then added plastic lights to the boxes with diffusers and then LED backlights. And then I even printed my own custom stickers for the control panels and a sticker for the moving radar screen. I did notice in the original Tumbler, they had these sort of side screens on the side. It was like it almost looks like a checkered box and then an additional screen behind that. So I went ahead and again, modeled those out in the program, printed them out, put those on either side. And I was really trying to go for as best a screen accuracy as I could. You know, I know it's not perfect, but I did want it to be a little bit more exciting on the inside. Very high tech and very, you know, very Batman looking. The crown jewel and the most elaborate thing that I did on this was I decided to do something that nobody has done on these tumblers up until this point, and I decided to take on the ceiling screens. So there's 6 in total. I modeled them out in the 3D program, and then I printed them out, and then I lit each one of them up with a tiny LED, and of course I put the screens in and a diffuser, and it came out really cool, but it was insanely hard to run the wires cleanly. Just by looking at it, I can tell you that Christopher Nolan, when he filmed The Dark Knight, he used a completely different set piece for the interior of the Batmobile, and the exterior was just completely different. So it's really difficult to put those screens in there the way they are on the interior in the actual film. It's almost like the outside at 1/12 scale is perfect for a figure, but the inside needs to fit almost like a 1/10 scale. It was just it was really difficult, and with all the additions on the inside, it does make Batman a little bit more cramped than before. All in all, this was one of the hardest projects I've ever done, mostly because I rushed into building it before I had a solid customization plan. And taking it apart later, not fun. I broke a few pieces, the plastic's not the strongest, but despite all the challenges, I'm super proud of how it turned out. This project really gave me a deeper appreciation for the Tumbler's design, and for the price, I think this Modoking kit is absolutely worth it. I mean, it's like 120 bucks, and you know, especially if you're down to put it in the work. So if this video inspired you to upgrade your own Tumbler, awesome, you know, and if you want access to some of the 3D printed parts I made, you can feel free to, you know, message me on Instagram at Trish Toys, and I'll be making some of them available for purchase, you know. And don't forget to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe if you're into custom collectibles, DIYs, just cool geeky builds, you know what I'm saying, or anything like that. But yeah, I hope this video inspired you guys. So, you know, stay creative, stay heroic, and thanks for watching. Until next time, peace.